In a nightmarish world, Bastion had a 1000 HP barrier. Ladies and gentlemen, this actually wasn't a nightmarish world. It was early beta. This is how Bastion used to be. He had a 1000 HP barrier, much like Reinhardt, obviously half the strength of Reinhardt's barrier, and it regenerated, and he could also repair himself. Yes, this was Bastion when he was a bit ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Hello though, and welcome to the channel. I am Stylosa, and I do have some Overwatch news for you. It looks as if they are working on Bastion changes. Now, this is super interesting, because Bastion, well, he's a very interesting character. So, there was a post on the forums, and somebody said, can the developers please address Bastion? And they go on to talk about how Bastion's been changed over the years, how he kind of really doesn't have a use, which kind of isn't fair to Bastion, but we'll get onto that in a second. And then there was a response from Jeff Goodman, who is the principal designer of Overwatch, and he says this: I'm actually working on some changes for him right now. It's not quite sure when these, well, I'm not quite sure when these changes will go live. We're still testing different things internally. Oh, this is quite huge, actually. Like, this is confirmation that Bastion is probably the next hero that is being worked on in terms of balance. Now, let's talk about Bastion, because what is going on with him? Well, Bastion is... he murders the new players to the game. Like, we've all done this, right? I've got videos of myself doing this. Basically setting up next to the spawn. I remember I was on Numbani and I set up next to the enemy spawn. As they walked through, I mowed them down. And I think I sat there for the entire game doing this because nobody knew how to counter me. That's where Bastion is super effective, right? Where people don't know where to counter him. The problem is, people will quickly work out how to deal with Bastion, because even if they can't work it out in the game, they'll just Google it and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's how you deal with Bastion. And then Bastion is dead. So, what happens then is Bastion use generally falls off, apart from a few niche examples. Now, Bastion is at his strongest when he is deployed as the surprise Bastion, ladies and gentlemen. And what the hell is a surprise Bastion? Well, it's a Bastion that you don't know of. This is very strong on maps like Route 66. You put Bastion on the payload when you're on attack. As soon as it gets around the corner, surprise Bastion! The enemy team are like, oh, okay. And then you rip their Reinhardt barrier down and you start killing them. If they don't kill you, then they've got to start changing their composition to try and deal with you. If they don't, and they just let you sit on the payload behind your Reinhardt barrier, whatever you're doing, you're just going to kill the whole team. And, well, that's a surprise Bastion in the extreme. But generally, teams will deal with the Bastion. Also, on Route 66 at the end of the map on defense, you could bring out a surprise Bastion. And when you do this, the enemy won't expect it. Maybe you're playing a soldier, you're playing a McCree or a Genji. You get killed, and then you swap to Bastion and you set up somewhere funky, like maybe by the truck or maybe to the left of the truck, anywhere like that. The enemy team come around the corner, surprise Bastion, and you kill them all. The thing is, these tactics only work once, right? Because once they know you've got a Bastion, well, they're going to start doing things to kill the Bastion. And here's a great example of why Bastion isn't really the best. So if you're on Hanamura defense and you're sort of sitting there and everything's all fine and dandy, and you're playing Bastion how Blizzard intended him to be played. So you set up in a position, you wait for the enemy attack, you hose them down, you then go back into recon mode, you relocate, so run somewhere else, turn back into the turret and get ready for the next attack. The problem is, they now know you've got a Bastion. So what they're going to do is pick Widowmaker or somebody like that, or Anna's going to focus you down with Widowmaker and you will die surprisingly quick. In that case, you don't really have any way of defending yourself, because if you're set up and Widow starts shooting at you with an Anna, well, you're going to die pretty quick before you can even basically get out of turret mode and run off. So, well, it's sentry mode, isn't it? Go back into recon mode and run away. You're not going to be able to do it and you're going to die. So, what the hell are Blizzard probably going to do to Bastion? Well, they're not going to give him a shield again, because that was ridiculous. The reason why the shield was removed is because, well, he could just take loads of damage from the front, and it was crazy. Like, it was absolutely crazy. He still had a weakness behind the shield. Obviously, if you shoot, fire into behind Bastion, you could do damage to him, much like he is nowadays with his head, which is behind him. So when he's in turret mode, or sentry mode, you can kill him really quick by shooting into it's basically the headshot box, which is behind him. But that means you've got to get behind him and all of that stuff, like fighting him head on. Like I said, isn't the best if you're somebody like Soldier, but even a Soldier can kill a Bastion because you can kill him from range, poking him like away at him and force him to change location. And again, that's kind of the problem with Bastion, right? A lot of people can deal with him and he's just not used. Like, this is the major issue with Bastion right now. He's not really used. So this is most likely why they're going to look at him, and most likely how they are going to look at him. I think they're probably going to do something to recon mode. Now, it might be some simplistic things to begin with, because we know that they don't like to do crazy sweeping changes to heroes. They like to sort of tweak them in little ways to see if things can work. Now, Symmetra had quite a massive change done to her. That's because Symmetra wasn't in a great position. She kind of was, hilariously, when you looked at her statistics, and when Blizzard looked at her statistics, they were pretty good. Like, she, you know, when she was used, she had a pretty high win percentage, her stats were pretty good, and all of that stuff. Thinking she was boring to play, so they changed it, and now she kind of does the same job, but it's more involving and it's more fun to play. Bastion, though, well, yeah, what are they going to do? All right, so I think probably they'll do something to increase his speed in recon mode. They might even reduce his weapon damage and increase his speed in recon mode. You see, a Bastion in recon mode is a large target. Bastion is a very big model. It's quite surprising how big, like, he's a massive square, so he's very easy to hit when he's in recon mode. So I think if they reduce the damage he does, but allow him to move faster so he can reposition quicker, that might be a pretty good change. Or the other thing they could do is they reduce the time it takes for him to turn into the turret and into a recon mode. What this means is, if he gets attacked, he can quickly deconstruct himself and run off. That is quite powerful, because that means he's got a defense then against these long range attacks. And I'm pretty sure that's probably the way they're going to go, because if you think of it this way, if Widow finds out where you are and she fires at you, or Soldier fires a Helix rocket into you, or somebody starts poking at you from range where you can't really reply to them, like maybe a McCree just keeps peeking around the corner and firing at you, maybe a Farah is launching rockets into you and you can't really escape because you're trying to deconstruct yourself and run away, but you just can't. So what you do instead is, if you've got a faster cooldown on this, so you're in your turret mode and you basically hit shift or whatever the button is on console, and then you just go into recon mode and run away, and then you repair, and then you can reset up somewhere else. Because in effect, what that is doing is, the Widow player, or whoever the hell it is firing at you, has kind of done their job. Like, they've pushed you away, they've persuaded you to move and relocate, which means your team might be able to attack, okay? But it also means that Bastion isn't dead, because this is the next issue Bastion has got. If you use Bastion on attack, not on attack, on defense, and the attacking team come in and they start damaging you and they kill you, you are dead. You now have to get back to the fight. Bastion is woefully slow, and I mean woefully slow. So any player worth their salt, what they would do is they would swap from Bastion. They would go onto like a Tracer or a Soldier or something, just to get back to the fight as fast as possible. Running back as Bastion is a bit of a mug's game. You're going to go so slow, it's going to take ages, and when you're in recon mode, you're not that effective. Your weapon is kind of okay, but you're so easily killed in recon mode, it kind of isn't really worth it being a mode at all, in a way. It's kind of like a waste of time. You almost want to spend as much time as possible in the turret. So, let's think about some crazy changes they could do. They could allow you to move as the turret. Now, this might be absolutely OP, and I'm pretty sure it is, and I'm pretty sure they've tested this internally. But what they could do is maybe have him move really slow, so he can kind of crawl. So I'm not talking like he can move as if he's in recon mode with the turret, because that would be absolutely OP as hell. I'm talking maybe he can just slightly move, or maybe he can just sort of jump to the left or jump to the right. Maybe he's got another ability. Instead of the heal, he can just shuffle to the side. Or shuffle, you know, maybe jump. That could be quite a fun mechanic, because the heal is quite strong, but the problem with the heal is Bastion can only really use it when he's safe. And I think the point of that is to be able to repair yourself when you're taking damage, almost, to kind of offset that damage, which I guess could lead me on to my final point. This could be the last way they could look at changing Bastion, I suppose, is make his repair stronger. So he repairs faster, so he can repair damage from, let's say, one damage source. Maybe not two damage sources, but like if he's getting fired at from a Soldier or something, he can sit there and endlessly repair and Soldier can't kill him. That might be an option. The only downside to that is having somebody who's invincible in that kind of way might not be great, especially because if it was like a 1v1 situation with Soldier, you could argue that Soldier has him at an advantage because he is at range, and Bastion doesn't really do that much damage at range because of his weapon spread. So really, Soldier should win. But anyway, if he did repair faster, what that gives the Bastion player is a choice. He either starts firing or he starts repairing. If he's repairing, he's not firing, so he's not doing Bastion things, and that would be a problem for the team because, well, he's not really doing anything. So you could argue that from that Soldier firing at the Bastion, he's actually doing his job. I think it's super interesting, Bastion is, because he's a character that sort of, he must have one of the lowest usage rates in the game. He has to have, just because of the way he works. It's sort of counterintuitive in a way to Overwatch. Overwatch is a game with a lot of movement abilities, a lot of abilities which shut down enemy abilities, a lot of like fast repositioning, quick team attack tactics. Generally, if you stay together as a ball and you sort of attack as a ball and kind of defend as a team, you're much stronger. Whereas Bastion, he's kind of like a lone canon. You know, like he can sort of go off and do what he likes, but generally that's not the best plan. I mean, often you see the most effective... I mean, like I said at the start of this video, the most effective use of Bastion right now is to put him on top of a payload, on a payload map. So something... You can do it maybe on Dorado, but it's not as strong on Dorado because he can be easily flanked at the start. But on Route 66, it's quite strong. Or pulling out the surprise Bastion on defense, so the enemy don't expect it, and you hose down one of their attacks. But then what do? Well, then you swap off the Bastion, which I don't think Blizzard want Bastion to just be this sort of set piece hero where he just kind of comes out and he's got one use and it's very specific and then he goes away, because, well, that's not really great hero design, is it? I guess I've not spoken about his ultimate as well. I don't think that needs changing. I think his ultimate is fine. It's actually one of the better ultimates in the game, that is, especially for an offensive hero. Once you get tank mode, you can do a serious amount of work. And you're pretty... Well, you're not invincible, but you're pretty much untouchable. I mean, if you get hit with like an Earth Shatter or you get put to sleep or something like that, that would give you a bad time. But a Bastion in tank mode, everybody is running away from that. It's such a powerful ultimate. So I don't think that needs to be changed. So I just think, just to quickly recap, probably we'll look at some sort of movement increase in recon mode. We could see fancy stuff like maybe being able to move slightly while you're set up in sentry mode, or maybe some sort of ability which kind of shifts you about as you're in sentry mode. I'd like you guys to go crazy in the comments below. I think this is really interesting that Bastion is being looked at, because I don't think any of us could argue that he's not exactly the most played hero, and a lot of the time when people pick Bastion, people tend to tilt on the team, which you totally shouldn't, because you should just work with what you've got. You'd be surprised how often things can work, but yeah, very interesting. Alright guys, I'm Stylosa, this is Unit Lost. If you enjoyed the video, then like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, which is @UnitLostGaming, which is a wonderful Twitter, by the way. You can see my crazy Reaper statue and all the stupid pictures I put on there, and I'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.